So yeah, I talk about Albert Cohen, who actually faced anti-Semitism very early. But you have to understand, that was the time after the war, I think World War II. It's important to understand also the context and the time. We are no longer in the time that people are not aware of what is this or what is that. People now some people are more and more careful. But you don't want to put your child in the box to think like in the box. This is extremely dangerous, and there is a quote that that Nelson Mandela said in his book that I bought a book that he wrote in the world of Nelson Mandela. He said, I will just try to paraphrase it the way I want, the way I can. He said that if people can teach hate to their children, so they can teach them love, So what does it mean? It means that racism is taught by parents. Parents teach children racism. It doesn't come from the outside. It's usually parents who have racial world in home. Okay, so everything comes from home. Like last time I had a live my friend who said that his parents would teach the financial awareness for their children, to teach them how to save money, who teach them. Quoi? So this is where it's very difficult, because the question will be, should I tell him what it is, or should I just let him? Because I remember the first time I was aware of racism, my parents never talked to me about racism at home. Never. As a matter of fact, they have friends from different races, so I never knew racism until I went to school. And like I say in a very old video, it's usually at school that you discover many ways of thinking. What your parents teach you at home is completely different when you go to school. For example, at home, your parents might tell you, you don't cuss, you don't do this, you don't do that, okay? And then when you go to school, you realize you meet a classmate who curse, who think it's very natural to curse because their parents are doing it. So for them, it's a lifestyle, it's the way they are, Usually when my parents usually say, oh, but when you're a child, you don't do this, you don't do that, you don't steal, you don't lie, you don't manipulate, you don't cheat. But when you realize that adult people are doing worse than kids, adult people lie even more than kids, adult people manipulate more than kids, adult people cheat more than kids, So it's only when you go to real life that you realize that, oh my God, so what I've learned from home is not necessarily what is really for everybody. So it's parents who teach. If you have a child who's racist in your classroom or somewhere, it's the parent. Don't blame the child. The parents are responsible. If you have a child cursing, don't look far. It's the parent. The children are doing exactly what the parents do. If the parents are always a racial victim, the children will do the same thing. Okay? It's like if the parent are always talking about racism or thinking, oh, I'm going to be victim of racism, the children will think the same way. But me, I don't want it. Okay, I want my child to be aware of things on his time, on his own. When it happens, then I will have to explain to him few things. There are people who do not like some people, and there are people who have this situation. But I will never make him feel like your race is less than the other, because if I enter this kind of discussion, he will feel lower than the other one, and I don't want it at all, because that's the point of racism. The point of racism is to make you feel like you are nothing compared to other people. As a black person, especially, because racism is mostly on black people usually. So I will not make him feel like that. I will just tell him that there are people who are simply mean. Because the reality is, even in my own race, then people who don't like each other. So what do you do? What can you do when you realize that? Okay, even in Africa you hate each other also. It's complicated. So I want him to be free in the mind, think out of the box. And that's what I always teach my niece, that do never compare yourself to somebody else, or do never think like that. But we have interesting conversation. I have a conversation with her, and I see that she's very smart.